Alrighty, and we're on.
How
So
are
we are sitting here in Bankstown Martial Arts in the Gracie Humaita side, I should say. There's actually 3 sides to this place, as Sami and I were just talking about. So, Sami, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Johnny?
So, for people to sort of give it a bit of an introduction to where we are. So, Sami was actually telling me the story. You know, this business has been around, 14 years now almost?
Yeah, I think I started Jiu Jitsu about 14 years ago, but the academy has existed for about 12 years.
12, yeah.
I think 2011.
Yep.
Nitrix opened up next door.
Yep.
And then at the end of 2011, I think December, we started our first Jiu Jitsu classes here. And the rest is history, I guess. I think we've had a long, exciting journey with different phases.
Yep.
But yeah.
So it's quite funny. You know, Sami will often comment, and we've talked about it quite a bit today, where, you know, him and his brother are like polar opposites in terms of personality. And I guess, you know, to be fair on Sami's brother, like when I last saw him before today, it was actually at a showdown event, and you know, he was sort of going off in the background about, you know, how a particular fight was scored. And I went out back to go and say goodbye to the boys, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm just going to leave. And Sami and I were having a bit of a chat about it. It was quite, you know, funny, obviously, not in a bad way, but more just to say that, you know, the personalities are very, very different. You know,
I think it's the yin and yang of martial arts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the yin and yang of life. Like, you know, we can't all be all the same.
No.
So that's I often joke to my mum. I say, you know, like, if we weren't brothers, we probably wouldn't speak to each other. Like, that's kind of like where it's at. But funnily enough, we've run a business together for 12 years.
Yeah.
And it's been a fun adventure.
Yeah.
Like, we've you know, I was explaining to Johnny earlier about how the gym came to life, and it's been it's a hilarious story of what happened and how it all became what it is today.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Well, let's sort of wind it all back. We will get into that funny story.
Yeah.
You'll have to just wait, and we'll get to that, right? But
Yeah.
so in terms of like where you grew up, were you born in Australia or?
I was born in Bankstown.
Born in Bankstown.
All of us born in Bankstown. 7 kids in my family.
7 kids.
Yeah.
So then, in terms of the pecking order, what number are you?
Number 4, bang in the middle.
Bang in the middle.
My brother above me is, I think, 3.5, 4 years older than me. My sister, I think she's 5.5 or 6 years younger than me. So I'm fully in the middle.
Wow.
Yeah. We're spread over a few years.
Yep. And then, so what was life like in such a big household?
It was a fight. You
Yeah.
know? Like, it was a fight. But my parents had a good system. You know, You know, they kept us busy. You know, I think that's the challenge people have today, is keeping their kids busy. But my parents really kept us busy, kept us on our toes. But we fought for everything. We like, you know, Sami ate 3 times today. Well, Sami's a growing boy, you know, like, and that was, you know, like it wasn't that bad, but that's kind of what it was like at times, where you had to fight for things.
Yeah.
You know, and we were always, there was always somebody to pick on, somebody picking on you,
Yep.
somebody standing behind a door trying to scare the life out of you every time you left your bedroom or whatever it was. So it was pretty fun, to be honest. You know?
And then, out of curiosity, how big was the house you were living in? Like, were you guys bundled into the same rooms? And
Well, our first home when we were living in Connor Park, we were kind of all in one room. I think we had multiple rooms. I can't remember. I was very young. And then my parents, when I was about year 4, year 5, we moved over to a much bigger house, which was at the time like a 4-bedroom house.
Yep.
And my mum still lives there. It's still my family's home. But we you know, he got his own room, standard,
Yep.
older brother. But then the rest of us kind of all worked it out. But yeah, no, it was good. Like, you know, you don't realise I don't think you register the years when you're that age. I do say to everybody that I would never have 7 children.
Yeah.
Because it was great growing up because we're always busy. We could just go pick up a ball and just kick the ball around the street. You know,
Yep.
play basketball. I played a lot of basketball, so we used to just literally throw each other onto the ground, and, you know, it just got wild out there. You know, but we competed for everything. But you know, when you turn 18 and everyone gets older, you start going, oh my God, I've got all these other people's adult problems now.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it.
Well, I'm past the halfway point to get there. I've got 4 now. So,
Yeah.
you know, when I think about that, like, 7 is mind-blowing, definitely mind-blowing. You know, 4 was already, it's uncommon in today's age, you know, and that's probably the thing that most people will sort of look at me when they ask me about, you know, how many kids I've got, and they sort of go, ooh, you got 4. Like, how's that? And I'm like, yeah, it's challenging, but at the same time, you know, I think as a parent, you would never regret having more than less.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But it's just the problems that you go through when you're having the more.
Well, I had no register. Like I think I taught kids for years, and I was just like, you know what, this is great. Kids are fun, and you know you love the kids on the mat. You're like, these kids are great. You know, they're doing really well. They're really passionate. It's exciting. And then you have your own, and you're just like, you had no idea how amazing it is having children. You know, everybody tells you how bad it is. It is hard, you know, but on the same, like, you know, oh, you lose this, you lose that, you know, guys lose jiu-jitsu, they lose, you know, their martial arts training, but to see a child every single day, it just changes everything. It changes the landscape of your life. And I think I've changed a lot about my life since my daughter was born, and second one's on the way soon. So that'll be exciting.
Congratulations.
As well. Yeah. Thank you.
I feel like that, you know, just to digress and talk about kids for a bit, because it's one of those checkpoints that until you've experienced it, you know, like people like, you know, and for anyone that doesn't have kids, you're probably thinking, oh, look at these two old, I was about to use a really bad word there, that would get me cancelled. But look at these two old guys, you know, talking about kids and things like that. And it's like, you know, they don't quite understand it, but until it happens to you, you don't quite understand it. Because there is something that is like in your body or in your DNA that when that child comes out, like it elicits this response. You know, giving birth is actually something that's so primal. I don't think for a female you can get any more primal than that experience of giving birth. And as a male, you know, almost getting your hand broken is probably, you know, our side of that. But then when the baby comes out, the emotions that sort of come out of you, like no matter how much we talk about it, like I said this to Josh Goulbow, because, you know, he recently had his first daughter as well. And, you know, it was like when he posted the picture, I was like, oh, it changed you, didn't it? And he goes, yeah, because he's always like, oh, you know, I've never needed any external motivations to push me and things like that. But like when that happens to you, it's like you can't explain it.
Oh, I say to all the guys in the gym, like, you know, so we've been around for ages with these guys, you know, and I've seen all their life cycles, you know, where they've been at, you know, and then I know when my daughter was born, I was just like, this is traumatic. Like, this is like, you know, my wife would say to me, do you feel like you're going to be a dad? And I would say, no. Yeah. Like, she's like, but I've got like this massive bubble in front of me. I'm like, yeah, but that's more you than me. All I did was put the table together and the bed together, and I went and bought things. That's how I feel about being a dad at this point in time.
Yeah.
You know, and she'd look at me just like I was an idiot, you know, like,
and
then we're at the hospital. And when I say it's traumatic, it is genuine. I think for every potential new dad, that and the mothers as well, but that first experience, just looking at the landscape of the hospital when you entered the room and when you left that clean room, is so full on. You know. But on the same token, there is just this incredible moment where you just go, you see your child, and you just. Everything restarts. Yeah, I think everything just restarts. And for me, that was a big kind of thing. It just, I was like, oh, I spent the last, 35 years of my life just thinking about me. Yeah. And now I don't matter anymore. Yeah. My existence doesn't matter. I, see my daughter and I'm like, she's wheezing. What's wrong with I'm checking if she's breathing, and my wife is like, what is wrong with you? Like, she's fine. I'm like, no, she's not fine.
You're so smitten.
I care about this thing more than anything else. And then it's funnily enough, Dave, one of the fighters, he recently fought, and he came over to hug me after a fight. He goes, I want to hug you. And I said, well, he goes, I know you're not the type of person to hug, kind of keep your distance. So I only hug on the mats, man. But I think I've stored up all of that, that love for my daughter. Yeah. Like when I see her, I'm just like, this is the best thing ever. Yep. I'm going to hug and kiss her till she tells me no. Yep. So yeah. What's happened to me?
Well, no, look, as I said, it's one of those things until you experience it is nice talking about it, because I think, it's a common experience for most dads, right?
Yeah.
The emotions, like you go through this thing and like, I'd say I'm not a guy that typically cries, right? But then, it's like, it's one of those, I'm not crying. It's there's something in my eyes kind of moments. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly my kind of, I don't think I have cried with my daughter, I think I've just held it in a lot.
But they're welling
A
up.
lot,
Your
yeah,
eyes are like bulging out of your head as you pick up this thing and you're like, I'm not crying.
Yeah. I think I've just toughed it out, you know? Like, it's like toughing out an armbar on the mat. Like, I just tough it out. It's fine. I can do this, you know? But, it's really life-changing. Even for me, like, look, my daughter was born I think first or second day of lockdown, on the second lockdown.
Yeah.
Right. So, I was like, oh, lockdown's a blessing. You know, it wasn't, but it was in a sense.
Yeah.
So, my wife was in there. We went to the hospital, like brought the kid back to the house, brought my daughter back, Yolanda. So, we get back to the house and I'm just like, this is I'm now going to spend this time with this child and it's going to be the best.
Yeah.
And I actually cherished that 3 months I spent with my daughter. We moved up to the Blue Mountains. I got to spend every single day in nature with her, got to see all the birds come over to our house, and now I see her walking outside playing with these birds and I'm just like, you know what, I've made lifestyle changes for her. It's the first time I registered that I actually own an academy and I have a responsibility to actually run a business, despite the fact I run a business, but I just did the job. I never thought about the job. And then my daughter was born and I'm like, I actually have to do better at this job. I have to be better enough to be able to not be here. That's part of why I moved to the mountains 12 hours a day, I need to be here less so I can spend more time with this person. Because she needs that. And I think I need it too.
So when it came to your parents in your busy household when you were growing up, right? Like, how did they try and manage that time, right? Like, that's a pretty difficult thing, right? I guess the one benefit of having more siblings is that you'll always find somebody to play with.
Oh, so remember how I said my parents had a system?
Yep.
Yeah, so they had a system. The system was that when you were old enough to carry things, you went to work with dad.
Okay.
My dad was a carpenter. Very illegal today for us to go on a job site. But my dad used to take us with him to work, So I'm as old as probably my earliest memory is about 8, 9 years old. On a job site. So I'm doing construction. Like well and truly doing construction, hey, go get me this. Hey, go get me that, So I'd do that for my dad. And on the week, so we'd finish school and my parents would be like, oh, you want to go see a friend? Go see a friend. I played basketball. So twice a week I'd play competitive basketball. So my mum would drop us off to the basketball stadium. No problem, play basketball. And then, other days go train with your friends, homework, whatever it is. And then on the weekend you worked with dad. I hated it. I did hate it. And I did spend a lot of time with my siblings, even my older brother. So he was, by the time he was 17, he's actually a builder by trade, funnily enough.
Oh, wow.
So we all worked in construction with my dad. So I spent time with my brother, I spent time with my dad. And the more we grew up, finished school, my dad's like, you don't need me anymore. You don't need me. Go do your own thing. Now you have a good work ethic, I like to think. You've been working weekends and holidays your whole life. You've still played basketball, you've still played sport. You've gone to school. But you know how to work. Now you can go earn your own money. So that was pretty good for us, and we got to spend time with our parents. So that was pretty funny. So that was kind of like the system, and it was kind of like when I was a kid, I didn't appreciate it. I thought that was like kind of rubbish that I didn't get to ride my bike with my friends as much, and my parents had me really under control at times. Didn't mean I wasn't social. It was just different, if that makes sense. But I did get to spend so much time with my dad, and just like work with your dad and see what he's all about and see how he's social with his friends and what his kind of values were. And my dad used to say like, oh, you know what? Like there was one particular day and by the way, by the time my brother was 17, so the brother above me, and I was 13, we'd been on the job site so much that they thought that we were like licensed carpenters. And I've been this tall since I was 13.
Okay.
So I was in year 4. I had the hairiest legs, and I had a mustache in year 4, so I could get into nightclubs by the time I was 13. So, so it's just really funny experience. So that was kind of like how it worked for us. We spent time with our parents through work. Mum used to, get us to mow the lawn and do whatever, and we did that, and then we'd all sit around the house on the couch and watch stuff and spend time as a family. So it was pretty, it's a funny experience. So it was like my old man was really big on by the time you're 18, you've got like do your own thing, like
whatever.
Up until then, my house, and then you got to be your own man, or, you know, for my sister's your own woman.
Wow.
So that was like, I think that's been a huge positive in my life. You know, we're all different, by the way, all 7 of us. If you met all of us, you probably only recognize us for how we look.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of
So personality all totally different.
all over the place.
Yep.
Yeah. So we but
it's not a spectrum in the sense that, you know, like you can sort of see who's the most extreme to the least. Like if you and your brother are polar opposites, then the other ones sort of sit in between, or
it's
okay.
Things change fast. You know, there's but yeah, I think for me, I was a bit of a spectator. So I got to see the young ones, I got to see the old ones, and I got to kind of pick where I wanted to go with a lot of things, which I was pretty lucky with that.
Did you feel like being in the middle that you got overlooked a bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
I don't know. It's a good thing in life, I guess. Like for me, I don't mind not being the center of attention.
Yeah.
I see it as a good thing. So I'll tell a couple funny stories about that. So my sister, my older sister, she's she's a year younger than he is, and he's old. But no, I'm joking. But so she was born on May 12th.
Mm-hmm.
I was born May 11th.
Okay.
So the story is I wrecked her birthday.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're a day before hers.
But it's also Mother's Day, always around that time as well.
Yeah.
So my parents, for as long as I've existed, have intentionally forgot my birthday. Like intentionally. Like they've literally, so my whole life, they made a big point about my sister's birthday coming up. You know, she's older, more important, female. So, you know, I don't matter very much.
Yep.
So literally every single birthday, they'd come through and be like, Sammy, how are you today? You know, whatever. And then they do the big surprise at the end of the day. You know, 8 o'clock comes, we didn't forget you. And then I went away. I backpacked for 3.5 months when I finished university at like 21. And I thought that this was just like a, you know, like a thing that was like a running joke. I'd been away for 3.5 months, and I told them I'm coming back on a certain date. And I got back, and my parents were like, oh, we're at a thing. Like, we're all at a thing. The whole family. There's a million of them, you know? Like, so I was like, oh, cool. I'll go home. So I'll just like, whatever. They're going to surprise me, right? So I got my backpack. I'm looking really rough after 3.5 months partying through Europe. I get the train home. I get home. I get through the door, and nobody's there. Nobody's there.
Yeah.
And this is about, for argument's sake, I got in the morning, get in the afternoon, probably 2 o'clock. And I'm wrecked. Just come back from Europe, fall asleep on the couch. It's 2 a.m. when I wake up. I'm on the couch. Nobody's home.
Still not home.
Just forgot about me.
Legitimately.
Legit. Just
So it wasn't the running joke.
No, it wasn't a running joke. They just forgot about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like the middle child. They just legit forgot about me. Or didn't care about me, which, you know, I choose to pick the forgotten part, not the caring one. But middle child through and through. Yeah. Through and through. So yeah, I like it. I actually like it. I think I carry that mentality into when I started jiu-jitsu. I started later. I was older. So I always felt like nobody actually thought I was going to beat them.
Yep.
Like, I felt that way, and till today, I still don't know if anybody thinks I'm good at jiu-jitsu or I've actually done anything in jiu-jitsu. My medals stay in a bag, and I don't think I'm ever going to look at them ever again. Yeah. I'm just happy for them to be there, and I just do my thing and keep going, you know? And I think I forgot myself sometimes, but yeah.
So then when it came to school, you know, what kind of a kid were you at school?
I was dumb. Like I only cared about dribbling my basketball to school. Like, that was my focus. It was, I shouldn't say that, but I didn't try to be smart, if that makes sense. I didn't. I was in Condell Park Primary School till year 4, and I was at like a reasonable academic level. And then my parents changed my schools. So I went to Georges Hall Public School, and night and day. Really? Like me and my brother, night and day, right? I walk into the school, and they put me in like a beginner's level reading course. And I was like, I read just fine at my old school. And they're like, nah, you suck at this school. And so I don't think it was my fault. Like, I'm going to try to deflect the blame. It was just the
school that you're at that coach you to a high level.
It
was just a difference in
teaching.
teaching.
I'm not going to say much about Bankstown. You know, like, so I think at the time it was, you know, probably not really cared about as much.
Yeah.
But so I didn't feel particularly smart through my schooling, but I was actually good decent, you know. And then I come to year 11 and I like I said, I only played basketball, didn't really care about anything else. And my dad, I said to him, I said, look, I'm going to drop out and become a carpenter. You know, you've been preparing me for this my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like surely that's what I'm going to do. And he said, are you dumb? Like, you do well in school without even trying. He said, try for a year. Like, try just for 1 year. Just try to be smart. And I'll never forget it because he said, look, I think you're going to go to university. Like, and if you just apply yourself.
Wow.
And I kind of laughed at him and like, you know, I was like, whatever, like, you know, like you make money, you're a tradesman, you know, whatever. Like, and for a year, I kind of like it's pretty funny. I grew up Lebanese background and Lebanese people hold grudges, right? They're very good at it. So I hung out with a bunch of Lebanese guys and for the last year of school, I stopped hanging out with those Lebanese guys because I was getting in trouble or I was misbehaving a little bit. So they actually still hold that against me till today.
Wow. Like
I bump into them and they go, I remember how you didn't talk to us. And I was like, but like that was a conversation with my dad and I took it seriously.
Yeah.
You know, so I spent a year just trying to focus on schooling. And in the end, I ended up doing pretty well. Like I wasn't happy with my final HSC results, but I got distracted during the final exams, just being a teenager, you know, chasing chicks and playing basketball, that I didn't study for my final exams, which I was pretty disappointed in, but it was just the fact that I spent too much time at home. They gave me too much time to sit at home and not study, which is kind of bad. But yeah, I ended up going to university and yeah, so I think it worked out in the end. And
what did you study?
I have a funny degree. So I went to Sydney University, but my degree is Applied Sciences Health Information Management degree.
Wait, Applied Sciences Health and Information Management degree?
Yeah.
So what kind of pathways is that degree supposed to open up for?
Okay, so let's go through my process as an adult of how I picked this degree. Yeah. So you know how you got the book that like the Beckett of,
it shows you like all the different courses. Yep.
So more or less, I picked my degree based. I own all of my top selections were all based on the fact that I would pick something that had a lot of career paths. So I didn't want to like pharmacist. I was like,
you can only
one
be a
job.
pharmacist.
No, I'm not going to do this for 30 years, you know, like, so everything I looked at was like against that idea. So I ended up picking everything that had if it didn't have 5+ career paths, I wasn't going to do it. Right.
Yep.
So in the end, I went through and this one had like 10. It was like research, you know, like medical record management, health management, you know, IT, information support, whatever, right?
Yep.
Like, so there was this huge list of, and I was like, this is a good course. This is a good course.
I can do anything with this.
I can be whatever I want to be.
The keys to the city.
Yeah. That was my mentality about it. And then I ended up finishing my HSC and you know, like it was good. You know, I was proud of myself. I studied for a year. I worked really hard. I got into university. My mum actually was like, you didn't want to be in this course. I said, I didn't want to be in university. Dad said that I got to get into university. I've got in, so I don't really care to, you know, to move on with it. I'm happy to become a tradesman. Yep. And then my mum said, no, like we're going to sign you up today. Like so she actually forced me to go and get into university. And you know what? I hear a lot of young people today, and it's funny because the guys in the gym, they all kind of like, they're all like, oh, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do this course or whatever. And I say to them, education is opportunity. Don't like, if you've done the study and you've done the work, go do the degree. Enjoy university. Right? It was the best years of my life. Yeah. You know, in hindsight, they were the best years of my life. You know, I worked 3-4 days a week, uni parties and whatever it was, and got up to a lot of mischief. You know, I was able to play sport all the time. Yep. You know, you don't have to do anything. You live at home or you live on campus, like a lot of my friends. And I got to experience things that I wouldn't otherwise experience. Yeah. And the big thing I say to everybody is like, I grew up in Bankstown, you know, for the most part, working class community, talking to people in the working class community. And then I go and meet all these other people who are coming from really educated backgrounds, different parts of like Barowra. I had a friend from Barowra. Who lives in Barowra? Like, so, you know, hey, come to my house. And I'm like, and it was just good because I got to meet people that I wouldn't have otherwise met. Yeah. And it really opened up my eyes to the world. And then, you know, after that, I was kind of like, well, that's good. If I can go and, go to Barara and think that I've traveled halfway across the country, I might as well go travel, like go experience the world. And by the time I finished university, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So is that how wait, so did you do your gap year after uni or?
I didn't have a gap year in the end.
The
little gap between, So I after university. So I literally turned 21.
Yep.
Got my degree that week. And I had a massive party at my house. Got trashed with my dad.
Was he proud?
Oh, yeah, he was. So that was, So I ended up drinking in the front yard out of the bottle.
What were you guys drinking?
Jim Beam.
Oh.
It was terrible. Don't do it now. But, I was younger. And it was, that following week, I flew off overseas for 3.5 months with one of my friends from university and caught up with a bunch of friends and arrived in Paris, told my parents I'd planned this trip. Like I was telling you earlier how I don't plan anything. I'm not very good at that. Like I think I'm actually good at organizing things. I'm just don't want to.
Yeah.
So I bought myself a French dictionary.
Yep.
We arrived in Paris and we were leaving from Frankfurt. And the only thing that was booked in our trip was Sensation White in Amsterdam and Dance Valley, which is kind of like those big festivals over there. And everything else was just like, let's make it up. and we well and truly made it up, and I had a great time.
Any funny stories that came out of that trip that you'd like to share?
So I'll tell a funny story, which is kind of like, so one of my friends that I traveled with, he was busy chasing chicks. So like, obviously we live in a multicultural country, but you don't really meet a lot of girls with really funky accents. So he'd meet the new girl in every city and then he'd go, where are you guys going next? And we go, oh yeah, we're going to whatever, Czech Republic. All right, we'll meet you there. I was like, no, we're not. Like, that is not where we're going. We were planning on going to Spain. And he's like, no, we're going to Czech, man. Like, she has a cool accent. She's from Denmark. And I was like, oh, all right, whatever, So we ended up like doing, like I said, some unplanned trips. And then one of our friends, remember we had those tickets booked in at Sensation in Amsterdam. He has a gambling problem. At the time he did anyway.
Oh, shit.
So he calls us up and he goes, boys, I need you to send me 800 euros. And this is not like now where you just transfer money and it arrives. Like it takes like 3 days or whatever at the time. And you had to do it from an internet cafe.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like, so, and we're like, man, like we can't help you. Like you got to sort this out. We're going to be there in a day and a half. The money's not going to get there. Like, and he calls us up and he's like, man, I don't need you guys. I was like, what do you, he goes, just made $1,100 at the casino. Done. So we ended up having an awesome apartment on the canals of Amsterdam, and he paid for it from gambling money, like that he made at the casino.
Wow.
15 minutes before called us and told us that he's, so that was pretty funky. And we actually had all of our friends stop through in Amsterdam, stay in our apartment, and we were legit like just looking at the canals over us. And we had a lot of funky experiences there. But I know you've spoke a lot about psychedelics. That was the first time we tried mushrooms together in our apartment, and it was pretty funky.
What was that? So, do you remember what that experience was for you?
I'll play more context as opposed to experience.
Okay.
Right. So Amsterdam weather sucks. So we didn't get a chance to. By the way, they were legal there, so I treat that as kind of like I know people don't care, but whatever. Yeah. But at the time, we were like, whatever. We're here. It's legal. We can do it. You know, like as young people, because we've never done it before, and my friend goes, look, we're not going to get a fun day at Vondel Park. Like most people do it in nature, because Vondel Park is where everybody goes to do it.
Yep.
Right. So we were like, we can't go to Vondel Park because it's rained the whole way through. The only 2 times it didn't rain was Dance Valley and the day of Sensation, I promise you. So we were there for 3 weeks.
And it was just raining every day about those 2 days.
Woeful. Like, just, you couldn't go anywhere. Like, it was terrible. Had a great time though. So anyway, we just go, look, it's our last night here. Like, so we're gonna go.
It's on.
We got to do it. Yeah. And then my friend, he, the guy, the gambler, because he makes friends with random people, and he says, "Hey, listen, Sammy, I'm gonna put this tape on." So tape, not a DVD, not a CD. He's like, I was given this by an ex-military guy, and he says, if you don't listen to this whilst you do it, like, you're not gonna have a fun time. I was like, all right, cool. So we sit down, we do our thing. And then it was the tape.
What's
The tape. was literally like you'd hear like toilets flushing, like, and then you'd hear like somebody hammer on the table, like the most random sound effects to add to your experience. Like it was just full on. We were we're sitting in a canal, and I'd like, so I know some people recommend it to everybody. I recommend do whatever works for you. Just be mindful what you're doing. Enjoy the experience. You know, you don't need to do it all the time, but that one time's enough. So it's raining really hard in the canal. We're looking into the canal, and I'm just like, this is crazy. I'm watching people like jump into the canal. Like I'm seeing the raindrops are hitting the water and people are sinking through the canal. And I'm like, this is pretty full on, right? Like the colors, like it's I think it's a pretty incredible experience. And the one thing I do say to people about that experience is take away what happens during the time. It's you share a bond with those people because you can see the same things if you try, right? That you can't like replicate. So for me, regardless of what happens in these people's lives, they are still my well and truly great friends. Yep. So yeah, I had a great experience. Yeah. So that was kind of funny, you know. So
well, out of curiosity, you know, did you get any aside from the experience, were there any lessons that it sort of or reflections that it sort of brought to you that you were like unaware of?
Funny one, right? Yep. Funny one. So I had an injured wrist at the time, right? And during the experience, I focused on it, like, and it hurt because it heightens your senses. So so people are aware, that's all it is. It's just this experience that is so heightened that is so incredible, right? In a sense. So for me, I focused on my wrist so much that it hurt so much. And then the lesson from all of it for me was like, the more you focus on something, the worse it becomes.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes you can ruin it, you know? So for me, halfway through all of this, I was like, why don't I just not focus on this?
And I focused,
and it disappeared.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And for me, that's kind of something really important. That was a lesson I learned in life. Sometimes I focused on things for too long, and then I just I wrecked a lot of other things. So sometimes it's good to just, you know, like you can invest a lot of energy. Like now in my Jiu Jitsu life, you know, I invested years and years into competing. It's all I cared about. You know, I didn't care about anything else.
Yep.
Right. And then my daughter comes along and she just fully ruins all of that. Just kidding. But you know, but she just changed my perspective on all of those things. And like COVID came along and I could focus on all the negatives of COVID and what it did to my business. It really hurt my business. But I didn't. I focused on what the positives were. And I was like, you know, just shift your focus.
Yep.
Let's focus on something else.
Isn't it funny? I feel like that sort of ties in with some, I guess, Buddhist ideology in the sense that, you know, the very nature of wanting something in essence means you don't have it, right? So, you know, we get so fixated that we want to achieve this or we want to achieve that, that it feels like it's never going to happen. But the moment that we stop fixating on that idea, it just magically happens. And it's just because, like the simple nature of you wanting something means that you don't have it. Right? Whereas if you operated in the capacity that you had already attained what you wanted to attain, your actions would probably align with actually attaining what you wanted to attain in the first place. Right? So, I think there's actually a pretty profound lesson in that sort of experience.
And I think you'd like, it could be anything. It could be a really hard training session where you could be running and get a runner's high and have an epiphany, have a moment where you're just like, you know what, this makes sense. Yeah. You know, and I think that, like, obviously there's other conduits to enabling all those things, but I do encourage people to put themselves in pressure situations or interesting situations where, you know, they can kind of cross over with that idea that they have to challenge themselves to think differently. Yeah. You know, I think it's easy to stay in your lane. Yeah. The one lesson, actually, I will talk about one lesson I learned backpacking through Europe at that time was when I came back. Like, so I had this idea that I'm away for 3.5 months, whatever it was, that I'd come back and everything would be different. Like, I'd come back and I was ready to jump into employment and health, and that everyone's lives had changed like my life had changed. I did all this cool stuff and, you know, I got back and I was like, nothing. Like, absolutely zero has happened here. Like, we're 21, like, there's really the action component of your life isn't that much. Yeah. But all my friends hadn't really done much in that 3 months.
Yeah,
Nothing.
you
really
had grown
changed.
as a person, but they stayed still.
Yeah, and I realized through travel, like, yeah, it's a great enabler.
It is.
You know, it is an incredible enabler. So yeah, that was really awesome for me when I came back, and I was like, you know what, I've got to do more of that. First and foremost, got to do more of that, and I've got to also think about what I'm doing here and how I can constantly change that. And that's how I approach my life now. I see every 5 years as like a whole different cycle.
Yep.
You know, I don't dwell in what I've done previously. Like I'm sharing stories with you now, but that's kind of like, that's why when you say, hey, can you tell me a story? I'm like, I forget a lot of it.
Yep.
You know, I forget a lot of it because I'm living in the next 5 years. You know?
So when it comes to forward thinking and planning, is that how you then approach your life? So you go 5 year segments at a time. So so as an example, at this point in time, do you have a 5 year goal as well as, okay, how far are you into the previous 5 year goal, which is now at year 4 or year 3, year 2, year 1?
Yeah. Take COVID out and having a child, like, you know,
they're big
take those
that
two
go.
things in there. So I essentially build my life around here's my ultimate goal, here's the stepping stone goals, and here's the little things I'm going to change in the meantime to achieve them. You know, and that's pretty much the way it's worked for me. It's like a simple, I read a book about this idea about like achieving things in sport, and it kind of resonated with me really well. I forgot who wrote it and what the book was called, but I think it was called 10-Minute Toughness. Not a great book, but it was just kind of a good way to kind of push myself, if that makes sense. You know, goal setting is a really hard thing to do, and I didn't really know where to start, and that's where I kind of started, and I've kind of applied that to everything I do now. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you write those goals down, or how do you?
I used to write them down, yeah. So I've got like a bunch of little papers where I've just got like these little short-term goals, like, you know, and then the whole premise of the book was about performance. Sorry.
You're right.
Performance statements, writing ultimate goals, which my ultimate goal at the time was get my black belt. You know, like that was the kind of thing. And what I would sacrifice in the meantime. So given what I've just told you about my lifestyle, kind of went and partied a lot, had a bit of fun, you know, enjoyed my life a lot. And I worked an office job at the time, and, you know, I kind of, you know, if somebody said, hey, let's go have a beer after work, I'd kind of go, yeah, all right, cool, you know. And then I kind of one day was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, I'm not, somebody says, let's go to the pub. I'm not going to the pub, you know, I'm going to go do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work towards that goal. And at the time, it was quite funny. I didn't submit anybody in the gi in competition until I was a purple belt. Okay. And I compete a lot, but I just have to outpoint everybody. And I just got really mad at that idea. I was like, how come in no gi I can, but in the gi I can't? Yeah. And I just kind of said, all right, you know what? I'm going to change. This is what prompted my, you know, I'm going to start talking about goal setting and change things. Was I, you know, when I got this book, and I didn't even finish it, I just went and took the model out of it, right? That's what they're talking about. And I was like, I'm going to set these goals up. And one of the things is that, hey, in order to submit all my opponents, I need to spend more time on the mat in those positions, right? And I'm going to submit guys from whatever. Yep. And I'd write that down and say, what am I going to sacrifice for that? And the first thing I put there was, you know, not going to drink. Like, I don't think that's everybody, by the way, but that was, at the time for me, that was a thing that I'd just go leave the office, go have a drink, whatever it is. So yeah, and then I just started building up these goals, and they just got more ambitious. They continue to be ambitious. Yep. You know, my end game, one of the 5 year cycle between 30 and 35 was that I would be a part-time employee of my business. I'm not. You know, like I'm still here. But COVID kind of hampered that for me, like I said. But yeah, like so, and purely because of the lifestyle choices that I was wanting to make, which was like my end game in life, is that I want to be able to be in any city I want to be in and put on my gi and just go train. Yep. Like, you know, walk into a gym, be an absolute nobody. You know, oh, there's a new black belt in town. He's from Australia, and just learn. Yeah. You know, enjoy jiu-jitsu. It's awesome. Yeah,
I'm sort of living that Ronin style of lifestyle at the present moment, because you know, now that I'm doing a whole bunch of different things for Alto, it's like it's made it difficult to find the dedicated time to train. So it's like slotting in sessions wherever I can and at wherever I can. And
did one here today. It was good.
So yeah, and so from that perspective, like people always are like, "Oh, I'd love to do what you're doing," and it's like, yeah, I don't think you really know exactly like how much stuff I do. Like Sami was saying to me before when we were just talking on the mats, and he was like, "You're doing a lot," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm surprised you can see it," because, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. But then, you know, when people see me at events and they see me here and then they see me there, that's like, "Oh, you are doing quite a lot.
Yeah. I think people have a misconception about how hard people work.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's, I'll bring my brother into this one. So my brother, he's always on me about like, hey, you're not doing as many hours in the gym.
Yep.
But he's not there when I'm like watching fights at like 3 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep.
Yeah.
He's not like, to be fair, I live in the mountains. So when I'm at home, I'm chopping trees down. I'm having a bit of fun, like, I'm maintaining a property. Yeah. Like it's not a huge property, but it's a skill that I didn't have living in the city. So, I'm learning things all the time. I'm not doing it. I'm building into my next 5 years, if that makes sense. And that's the way I kind of do things. I'll say, well, I need to start preparing for the next 5 years. So I don't want to do that. Like when I lived in Concord, not far from here, I found that because I was 20 minutes away,
you're always here.
I'm always here.
Yep.
And there's an expectation that I'm always here. And then you'd have people say, oh man, Sammy's not in the gym. Like there's this unnecessary weight of feeling like you need to be here.
Yeah.
When the truth is, like, your jiu-jitsu is going to grow with or without your coach. It's not going to stop. The main thing is that you're in an environment where you can learn and you enjoy being there. Yeah. That's the first and most important thing.
Yeah, that's so funny. People get caught in this idea that, I'd prefer to be close to work, right? And I've done both. Like I've worked at places where I was 5 minutes from home, and then I've worked at places where I was an hour and 15 from home, right? And I actually preferred to be the hour and 15 from home. As much as it sucks in terms of like, you've got to commute or you've got this, like I actually turned a lot of those hours into productive time, whether it's through listening to podcasts or ebooks or audiobooks and that kind of thing. But that also, there's a concept people talk about. It's like, it's your third space, right? Because when you don't have that separation between your workplace and your home life, it's like you might be at work and then in 5 minutes, like you haven't actually decompressed from being at work and all the things that are going through your mind, and all that ends up happening is that you just take the work version of you home and you're just a shit person to be around. Like that's just reality, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So my wife, like she's, so I'd finish work here and we'll live in Concord. I used to drive home.
Yeah.
And then one night she's taken the bin down to the rubbish area. And she saw me sitting in my car, just like sitting there. I must have been a sorry sight. Like I was just like flat, So she was like, do you do this every night? Like you drive home after the gym and you just sit in the car park, like, and just do zero. And I was like, yeah, I do that. She's like, so you're here 20 minutes earlier.
And you're just sitting in the car.
You know what it's like, like, hey, well then you're not wanting to spend time with me. No, that's not what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm deloading from the day. That time is the time that I think it's the most valuable part of the day. What did I learn that day? Yeah. What happened in the gym? Did somebody get hurt? Was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? I think about all these things. I reflect on my day every single day. And moving up to the mountains, everyone's like, oh, you live in Katoomba. I was like, no, I don't. Like you can live in Glenbrook and be 35 minutes from here. Yeah. It's not far, really. Off-peak times, it's not far. So distance-wise, far. But in terms of where it is, it's not far. So I, in terms of time driving. So 50 minutes is what it takes me to get home. And honestly, it takes me about 30-something minutes to get to the bottom of the mountain, foot of the mountain. And it takes me about 15, 20 minutes to get home from there. Yeah. And in that 20 minutes, I open up the vents to the car. I get that fresh air come through. Yeah. And I'm so happy. Yeah. That's the highlight of my day. That's my deload time. Yep. That 30 minutes is just like finishing the day. That 20 minutes is, hey, what am I doing tomorrow? Yeah. What my day was fine. Everything's cool. I make phone calls in that time as well. Like, if there's anything important to deal with. But then that last 20 minutes, I'm looking forward to seeing my daughter, my wife, checking hoping the house is warm. But, and just thinking about things I'm going to do when I get home. Yeah. And that to me, that time, I think people just underappreciate that being bored is good. Like being bored is good. Being in those mind-numbing moments where sometimes it's a good thing. Like you don't have to always be in this kind of present space where, everything you do is about the now. Yeah. My like I said, 5-year goals, it's a vision. Yeah. And
there's so many inputs coming at us every day, right? Like this is the thing, a lot of people feel lost. There's a meme going around of like, when you forget, well, your phone's on charge and you have to do one of those 90s shits in the toilet where you've got no phone, right? What do you do? And then nobody keeps books or magazines in the toilet anymore because they've always got their phone, right? Whereas when I was growing up, like there was always like a Reader's Digest or something, and you read like these articles that you would never have otherwise have read just because you're bored while you're in the bathroom.
I have a joke book in the bathroom in my house.
Yeah.
Jokes for the John. Yeah, jokes for the John. Never read it.
Well, there you go.
Modern era.
Yeah.
So I like, obviously I do a lot. I say to everybody, I'm sorry if I don't like a lot of your posts and I don't like your stuff on Instagram and I don't have time to message you. I presume everybody who likes and messages you off every single post, he spends a lot of time in the bathroom. That's my presumption.
Well, that's probably
because
true.
That's the only time I'm investing in that stuff.
Yeah.
Forgive me, but that's the only time and that's because I'm just, for me, like I said, I'm at my property. I'll find something to do.
Yeah.
During lockdown, I started mucking around with a fish tank. Wasted so much time. killed a lot of fish. I'm sorry, fish. Oh no. Yeah, killed a lot of fish. Learning how to manage a fish tank.
Get it right.
Yeah, kind of different combinations of fish and stuff like that. But so that's kind of like, for me, like I was talking about, I keep myself busy, but sometimes it's just doing nothing, and it's a good thing. Yeah. I see it as a good thing.
So, okay, you go on this 3.5 month trip and then you come back. And so what kind of an office job were you working?
So my first job, I was a culling clerk at Silverwater Prison.
Culling club.
What's that we're just getting rid of old records for people who hadn't passed away or kind of hadn't re-entered the prison system, which is a high statistic. Yep. So that was our job, was just to clear records and send them to offsite storage. So that was my first job. Me and one of the guy I backpacked with, and one of my other friends, we all did it. So there's 3 of us. It was our first job out of university.
Did you ever read the files?
Yeah.
Anything interesting in them?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sharing. There's a lot of crazy stuff, but I'll get into my future jobs.
Okay.
But like when I say read the files, so like you kind of like
gloss
you
over.
Read it once and you're just like, whoa, that's kind of full on, and then you kind of desensitize to it, which is kind of bad as well. But it is what it is, right? So that's the real world. Unfortunately, there's a lot of crazy things that happen out there. But anyway, I'm kind of my first job, culling clerk. Second job, ward clerk in the prison hospital, right? So the prison hospital is for the mentally insane. Like there's a ward which is for people who genuinely just had an injury that they couldn't actually manage in the prison itself. But the hospital was, for the most part, full of pretty interesting people. So my first day as a clerk in C Ward, I think it was. So I walk in and they're like, hey, how you going? I was like, yeah, good. And they're like, oh, cool. Hey, look, you can't leave the nurses' quarter. I was like, what's that? Because we're bringing a high-profile guy through. And I was like, okay, cool. So it turns out the guy had stomped somebody to death.
Wow.
In his cell. So...
in his cell, so he's
he told everybody he was going to do it. He did it anyway. Yeah.
Oh wow! And they didn't move him when he said, yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of mechanics to the way things
people
work,
are threatening
right?
people all the time in those
Yeah. I imagine a lot of criminals saying a lot of things, right? So anyway, so he did it, and but he'd done a lot of other terrible things, this guy. But that wasn't the confronting thing, because I'd already read all this really crazy stuff and they'd prepared you for that, right? But then they're like, wait in the nurse's quarter, and then they strip all their belongings and things like that, So they strip all the belongings and they're like, just like, and I'm watching this guy who's like a normal sized dude. They've stripped him naked and he's doing handstand push-ups against the wall. Yeah, like legit, like doing handstand push-ups. And I'm like, oh, that's... And they've got monitors, so there's monitors everywhere. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty full on. And then they're like, oh no, what's he doing? It's like, oh no, what's he doing? And he shat in his hand and then smeared it all over the camera.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was one of many stories.
Wow.
And that's, so like in terms of experience, that's kind of very unique.
It's very confronting too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it was funny because I didn't really think about it. I was just like, oh yeah, this is part of the job. Like I don't know why.
Oh, this is
like,
normal.
yeah. Like but I think I grew up with that. Like I said, growing up with my dad, like, my dad, like we'd seen so much stuff. We were kids doing adult things, you know. So by the time I was there, I was like, whatever. Everything's part of the job, right? So that was pretty full on. And then from there, I kind of I moved into a management job, so a data management job across all prisons in the state, just sending them information about, you know, medical stuff, you know, like what was going on with their appointments, what was going on. So it was a pretty fun job. And then I was there for about a year and a half. And then my boss was really awesome, Julia McGinty. I actually admire her because she actually helped me a lot in terms of my life in general. Whenever I was like a bit dusty, had a bit of a party or whatever, you know, or I used to play football, basketball. At the time, did a day of kickboxing. So she would come to my desk knowing that I was wrecked. Like she knew, like she had to know. Like I reeked, you know, like, of the night before. And she would give me like senior executive jobs, like write this brief to this person. And they would be to like important people about things that I had no idea what I was writing about, but she'd give me the information, I'd do it. And it was good because it actually taught me, I was talking about earlier about communication. It taught me how to communicate at a high level and get people who may be smarter than you, and or the data management job helped me deal with people who were not lesser than me, but in different roles, with different responsibilities, how to communicate with them. And then by the time I came to run a gym, I kind of knew what I was going to do, like how to communicate with people. And that's why I talk about the university experience, the work experience. That was really cool for me. And then about a year into my job, she goes, "You're doing great, but I can't pay you more." Right? So she was like, "Okay, so either you wait a year and I can bump you up a pay bracket." And at the time I was on whatever, like $50-something thousand, which was the equivalent of a family income of 2 kids at the time. And I was 22. So that's pretty good. And then I moved over to, so I said to my boss, I said, "Look, if I can't get a pay rise, I kind of might want to move on to more senior jobs." So I ended up over at Prince Wales Hospitals, doing an outpatient job, just some clinic work, like just help management of the place. And one of the most confronting things for me was my first day on the job. I walked into the hospital and I saw people crying walking out, and I was like, why
are they crying?
Whoa, like this is real. Like I worked in prisons and didn't feel like anything mattered. Like the patients didn't really matter in a sense, because you're just like, I don't really see families upset. And I walked in there, I was like, oh, this is a real job. I actually have to do a really good job here because people care. You know, and I did that for the next, up until I was about 27. But I started an outpatient job, management job, got paid a little bit better. And then I think I was there for about 3 years or so. And I ended up getting executive roles. Manager of information management was my role. So that was a pretty funny job. I got my own little office and I'm like, I'm important now.
I've made it.
But the thing, I always talk about like experience from this as well, is I was always taught that whatever job you do, you have to do it the best. Right? So don't go to work and not work. It doesn't make sense. Right?
That was from your dad?
Yeah. Don't go to work and not work. You go to work and work. Be the best at the crappiest job in the world. That's important. That's what creates opportunity. So part of why I was happy to leave the industry was I would watch people getting paid. So at the time I was getting paid a lot of money, like more than I should have earned as a young person, right? And unfortunately I didn't do very good with that money. I didn't spend it wisely. But
partying,
well, travel. I did a little bit more travel. So I'll come back around to how I started Jiu Jitsu as well, which is kind of a funny story too. I won't talk too much. I'll try not to anyway. But
it's all good.
So I'm sitting at my desk and there was a guy. So imagine my desk is like here, and then you're directly in front of me. The woman in front of me was getting paid lots of money. Like, I mean, like $100-something thousand at the time, right? So she was earning more than 2 families. I would watch her take the nail polish off and put it on 3 times a day.
She's just doing nothing.
Nothing. Zeros. There was nothing done that day. Every day, 5 days a week. And then I'd look over to the other side and the guy would fall asleep at 2:30 every single day at his desk. Like every day. I mean, nods off, just out. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't, this is not for me. Like, I can't be this guy who just falls asleep at his desk at, 40, 45, 50, whatever. So I did that, and then the gym came around. So and just, I'll talk about my trip in between all of this. So one day my boss comes in my office. She says, "You've got 8 weeks worth of leave." And I was like, "Yeah." She goes like, book a holiday. And I was like, all right, well, I'll book a holiday, And she goes, when? She goes, I don't know. And I said, all right, well, if I can get the rest of the day off, I'll go book a holiday. And this is how I started jiu-jitsu, by the way. This is how the end of this trip was how I got into jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So I walked down to the travel agent. I walk in. One of my friends is plastered on the window. Like his face is on the window sitting. And he runs in and he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm booking a holiday. He goes, you're going to LA. It's $900 flights return. They've opened up a new route. Cheap as Christmas time as well.
Wait, so your friend was working at this travel agent?
No, he was walking past the travel agent. That was just random, Runs in, hey Sammy, you're doing this, and I was like, all right, I'm doing that. So I said to the travel agent, book me. Like, let's book this flight. And my sister actually lives in America.
Yeah.
So she lives in Florida. So I literally I booked the flight to LA.
Yep.
No other plans besides that. I rock up in LA. I end up just going out for drinks that night, meet some Mexican girls. They're like, you got to go to Mexico. And I was like, what's the closest thing to Mexico in America? They're like, San Diego. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to San Diego, pre-jiu-jitsu, by the way. So I had no jiu-jitsu. I did kickboxing at the time. My dad was a martial artist, but he never encouraged us to do martial arts.
Okay.
4 of my 5 brothers, boxing, professional Muay Thai, one of my brothers, kickboxing, and myself jiu-jitsu. And my dad always said that you don't find martial arts finds you.
Yep.
So when you want to do it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's pretty cool for us. And my other brother was a good footy player as well. So we were pretty lucky in that sense. So I go to San Diego. I have a good time there. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Mexico. I go to Mexico, have the greatest trip of my life, convince the Mexican guy to close his business, drive myself and 2 German girls around Mexico. Yeah. Christmas time. New Year's. Spent New Year's on a beach in Puerto Escondido. Amazing, right? Get all the way up to Cancun, fly over to see my sister, come back. So I get back from my trip and I'm pretty down. And I'm like, oh man, how can you come off that high?
Yeah.
Like that trip was incredible. Like who convinces a guy to close his business and just come, like we paid for his accommodation and food and we're like, man, like he's like, yeah, whatever, business is slow anyway. Right? So go on this trip and get back. And my friend Sash, who was a blue belt going into his purple belt, Gracie Baha, he says to me, he goes, hey, he lives on Coogee Beach. And he's like, hey man, we're going to Japan. And I met him through his girlfriend and he did jiu-jitsu and he was like pumped about it. But he kept telling me to go to Brookvale because there wasn't many gyms back then. And he's like, come to Brookvale. I was like, Brookvale? I've been there like literally tens of people visit there every year. Like that's not, unless you live there, you don't really visit there.
Go to Brookvale,
right? Yeah. So anyway, I stayed at his house. So I house sat for him between trips because I just got back and he knew that I was a bit down about I've just been on this awesome holiday. And I walked down to the beach to grab a feed and Bruno Pano, my coach, Gracie Humaita School, I see his logo up there and I was like, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Like, this guy's trying to get me to go to Brookvale. Like, it's right here.
Yeah.
Like, I work at Prince of Wales Hospital. Like, surely I can just walk down and, do this. So I could run there. So, yeah, I did my first class when he got back. And I would call him and tell him my experience every class. And, he got his purple belt. And, he got me started.
Wow,
and I was just hooked. My first class, I went in there. There was a purple belt and a blue belt, and a black belt instructor. And I'd done a lot of sport. I was quite strong. I was about 110 kilos. And I got my ass kicked. I fought really hard. I was very resilient.
Yeah.
I was proud of my efforts.
Yeah.
That I went in there and I didn't know anything and I got my ass kicked and I had to go. And it was at Coogee Beach, so we were looking out at Coogee Beach. And then I brought my boardies and I was going to go have a swim and I went and sat in the car and I just sat there for about 45 minutes, just like windows fully fogged up, couldn't get out, hands wrecked, everything wrecked. I was like, you know what?
Fully gassed.
I'm going to get bloody good at this.
Yeah.
I'm going to get really good at this. I'm going to try to get good at this anyway. I don't think you ever get really good at jiu-jitsu. I think you just kind of progressively try to keep getting better. That's all. You just try to improve your skills. Everything's you just got to work harder. You know, you don't stop working. So that's how I got into jiu-jitsu as well. So that's pretty fun.
Yeah, wow.
And then I've never really looked back. And like I told you earlier, like for me, my whole life experience is like, hey, Johnny said, let's go here to a limit, of course. But hey, I'm doing this thing. This is pretty fun. Do you think you want to have a go? Yeah, I want to have a go. Like, let's go. Let's see what happens.
Has it ever gotten you in trouble?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that is, I don't know. I don't know where it starts and where it ends. You know what I mean? Like I said, I block out some of it. You know what I mean? Hey, we're gonna drink, and like I'm pretty civil these days, but hey, we're gonna try this. Like I was in Mexico on that trip, and I walked up to the bar. And the guy's like, hey, how you going? I said, good. Where you from? Australia. It was funny because when I was in the States, like a lot of Mexican people thought I must have been half Mexican or something because I was, just skin tone. When I got to Mexico, I realized that nobody thought I was Mexican because I was like a foot taller than most people.
Yeah.
I was quite big.
Yeah.
But where you from? Blah, 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 whatever. And the guy's like, hey, he goes, I make this mezcal at home. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. He's like, you want some? I said, why would I say no? He's like, well.
Or is it more like mescaline?
I'm not like, he told me after I'd taken 3 shots.
Yeah.
But he goes, you may hallucinate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty full on.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes, it does get me in trouble.
Did you end up hallucinating?
I ended up on the beach.
Yeah.
Mexicans aren't very tall, so I was a very short person.
Yeah.
Dropping some minimal beats on the beach, partying from midnight to about 8:30 a.m. on the beach. So I had a good time.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that maybe, I was just there.
Yeah.
I just remember smiling.
Yeah.
That's all.
You
That's
just
all.
sort of shrunk into the
What I mean?
background.
I'm like, whatever.
The world's going on.
Yeah. I could have just been sitting in a chair and doing nothing. I don't know. But yeah, no, that's my point. Like I don't dwell on things I did, but I've experienced a lot of things, and I made a lot of friends that way. Like I've made a lot of friends through jiu-jitsu, had a lot of really awesome experience, particularly guys from down in Melbourne. We've had some really awesome times. But yeah, no, that's been my experience. I like to enjoy everything, and I try not to nerd out on the thing I'm doing too much. Like that's again like my wrist example. Like a lot of people focus too much on jiu-jitsu and they neglect the rest of their life. And whilst I've put so much investment in jiu-jitsu and I don't want to stop getting better and enjoying it, I still don't want that to be the focal point of my life.
Yeah. Well, when you put this pressure on it that you want to get to this certain level, it takes some of the fun out of it, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, I was lucky as well. Like I say, I started at a gym as a blue belt. But I got to see so many phases of jiu-jitsu as a blue belt, because I think, like right now, I think blue belts think they matter. Like not I don't mean that in a bad way, but like as in that they're the biggest population of jiu-jitsu players, but they're the ones that quit the most, right? Like they quit the most. So why am I taking advice off them?
Yeah.
But I was a blue belt. And I saw, I was like, yeah, man, I got to listen to all these blue belts in my business. We're all, kind of building up. And then I realized a lot of them dropped off, and I was like, hey.
Wait, hang on. So you're talking about from the business sense, like
in general, I'm talking about my whole jiu-jitsu experience.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these people that they have these cool ideas in as blue belts, and then kind of eventually they quit, and it kind of it put my business in perspective at a certain point in time as I progressed the purple belt. And I was kind of like, hang on, I was running my business as just a boys club to start, we'd have a barbecue. Well, not a boys club because we had girls that train with us, but in a sense, we were just kind of enjoying the process. And then we just set up a barbecue on Saturday afternoon and have a barbecue.
Yep.
And then kind of like by the time I got to purple belt, I'm like, the same guys aren't there, and I'm not running a barbecue every Saturday afternoon because I don't have time to run a barbecue every Saturday afternoon.
That's right.
And then as you progress through, you start realizing that, hey, you can't maintain all that, and you've just got to make sure you're kind of like doing the things that the business needs and sustaining it as well. So it's kind of, I've matured with my jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And my life has as well. So
well, let's okay, before we digress and talk about the business side of things, when it came to competing, do you remember your first comp?
Yeah.
And what was what was your emotions as you've decided to do this comp? Like, was it by choice, or did you feel like, I've got to do this thing? Or
funny, right? So I met Hoyler Gracie the week I competed.
Really?
So I walk in the gym. I was only training twice a week to start. My body, I was playing basketball twice a week. I was kickboxing once a week. I was playing football on the weekends, and I was doing a full-time job and working a Sunday job as well. Yeah. Right. So I built a crazy work ethic at the time. I went in the gym and I was just in the bathroom, and then I see this little guy next to me. Like he's not a big guy, all right? Yep. And then he's like, "Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "Oh, good, man." Like he's like, "Doing jiu-jitsu?" I was like, "Yeah." and I didn't know who he was. Like I was doing jiu-jitsu really blind at the time, you know. So I was like, oh, you know, he goes, cool, I'll see you up there. And I was like, all right, cool, in the change area. And I come upstairs and my coach says, this is my master, Bruno Panos, this is my master, Hoyle Gracie. I was like, oh, Hoyle Gracie. We're doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Like, oh, this is pretty cool. Because he's a really cool guy. Like, Hoyle he's an awesome dude. You talk to him, like, you know, I say to a lot of people, like, you meet him as a person and he's just like, he's an awesome kind of human being. Like, he's just like, I always say take jiu-jitsu aside. Like, look at the person, and he's an awesome dude. Yeah, you know, like, because everybody has an opinion on different things in jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah, and the way you interpret the way you do jiu-jitsu as well. So, but yeah, so that was pretty cool. Like, and then I walk upstairs, and they're like, he's teaching the class today. So that's cool, teaching the class, Hoyle Gracie. And then they said, we're doing a seminar tomorrow, but we're doing a comp on the weekend. Hoyle Gracie Cup. My up there, my competitor T-shirt, my gold medal's right there. Oh, there you go. Yeah. First one. It's the only one that matters to me. Yeah. So anyway, they say, hey, have you entered the comp? And I was like, yeah, I went to the comp. What I tell you about my life. Yeah. Right? No thought process in it. I didn't even know a takedown. I didn't know a takedown yet. Right? So I put myself in the comp and I go in and I played rugby league. I just played rugby league. I played rugby league. Like I literally tackled the guy. I spat out part of my tooth during the match and I just kept fighting. Yeah. And I won my first match like 8-0. Or took him down, passed guard twice, whatever. But like it wasn't pretty. And then the second match, they were like, oh, Sami, I was competing super heavy. So 97. And then they were like, oh, this guy didn't get a match today in the ultra heavy division as white belt. So we're going to put him with you. And we'll just say it's a round robin, whatever. And I was like, yeah, whatever.
3 matches with this guy.
Whatever. And then I just went like, again, just played rugby league. He was a big guy. I think he actually took me down and I got up and I took him down in the end and I just outworked him. And I ended up winning the match. And after that, like that was about 6 months in. So I started in like February or January that year, whatever. And I was kind of like September, October, whatever. I don't count the months, but and then I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna train more. and then one of the guys, Big George and Jason from Parramatta, they kind of walked up to me and Aaron Coote was coaching me on the day and another guy, Mark Milton. So it was quite funny. They didn't know me very well, but it was good that they were with us. And then I think they realized that I was maybe a competitive person. But anyway, I got back to them and they're like, hey, do you want to go to the Pan Packs? I'm like, yeah. Where are we going? I'm in. Yeah. So then I traveled to the Pan Packs and after that I just started training 5 days a week, 6 days a week, as much as I could. And rest is history. I just kept going. Yeah, and I ended up adjusting my work hours. As I was telling you earlier, negotiated with my boss to go to work earlier so I could leave and do competition class during the day. Yep. And
how did they respond to that?
I worked hard.
So they were fine.
Honestly,
such a good job,
wholeheartedly, right? I do everything I can as hard as I can. I think I suck at everything I do, so I try to do it better than everyone else. I try to. There's things that I neglect, of course, but that's my whole thing. I won't play soccer. If you tell me come play soccer, I say no. So why don't you play soccer, Sami? I said, well, because I know that if I try to play soccer, I have to be good at it. So I'm not going to try. Yeah. Right. But the thing I do try, I want to be good at. If I'm going to go to work and do a job, I'm going to be good at that job. Yeah. So that was the whole thing, and I think I was good at my job. I worked really hard. If there was something to be done, I'd go in on the weekend and do it.
Well, they obviously never had an objection to you doing that, right?
No. Yeah. No. So my boss was amazing. I actually had a chat with one of my students the other day. He said to me, he goes, Sami, you know what? About 8 years ago, you gave me advice. You've been training for a long time, but he kind of on and off. And he said to me, he goes, 8 years ago, you gave me advice, and I just kind of looked at you and thought, he's not going anywhere. This guy's not going anywhere. And the advice my boss gave me, she said, Sami, you come in early and you leave late. And you answer 10 emails, 12 emails, 20 emails, whatever it is. But then you come in the morning and there's 20 more. The emails aren't going to stop. Maximize your hours in your day. In those hours that you are here, work for the 8 hours and go home. If you're not working for the 8 hours, then don't do it. Yep. Then work the extra hours. Yeah. But if you're working for 8 hours, why are you working 10?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And I kind of and after she gave me that advice, I was like, hey, can I do this? Can I and she was like, yeah, you're doing your hours. Yeah. You are working in those hours. So that was it.
It takes a very, she obviously is very confident in herself as well, because there's a lot of bosses out there that are always like, oh no, hang on a second, you know, you need to do this and you need to do that because this is what the company requires.
Yeah, well,
right?
Public health system, but you know, like it was kind of loose. But on the same token, I think you have to give people that confidence in you. Yeah. Like, you know, like and
it's a respect thing.
But
if you give that, you know, that trust and that respect to people, more often than not, they will repay that and then some.
Funny you say respect. Like me, I think respect is the thing that I care about the most. You know, I think, you know, the word loyalty and things gets bounced around a lot in martial arts.
Yep.
And I just think, like, if you respect somebody, like, loyalty doesn't matter. If you respect them, they respect you. Like, in the end, you'll be loyal if you have to be, if you want to be. You know, like, being respectful is the primary thing. If somebody disrespects you, like if I go to a cafe and they deliver a terrible service, right? Shout out to Hot Stone earlier. But you know, like they deliver a terrible service and they don't respect you. Like, what do you want? You don't go back there.
Yeah.
You know, you go, well, like, and that's the kind of the thing is that, like, you know, I respected this woman. She respected me. So Anne was awesome to me anyway. At the time, she gave me some good advice about life and about doing things. Like, she used to even check in and see how my gym was going when I was in the gym. So that was pretty awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, like I reflect on that in my jiu-jitsu life as well, because all I ask is respect. Like, if you respect me, I'll respect you. You know, even though sometimes I have a frowny face and I'm minding my own business, but that's just me being in my own world. Yeah. You know, but that's kind of like I think that's so important. You know, that I think people forget that too. Respect is the number one thing. Sometimes, and don't get me wrong, as a younger man, I wasn't as respectful as I could be. Yep. But on the same token, I try to be the best version of myself towards everyone I deal with. Yeah. It's
I always find that to be an interesting thing, because there's many different schools of thought on this, because, you know, some people say, well, I'm paying for a service, right? Yeah, you're paying for a service. Doesn't mean you can be a dick, right? It's like when you go to the restaurant, you're paying for a service for your waiter or whatever. Like, doesn't mean you can be a dick about it, right? So
I say that, like, the example I use about my gym. So, you know, like, people always say, oh, like, man, you've got rules at your gym. I say, yeah, I do. And I say, yeah, I definitely do. Like, why? Oh, because, you know what? Not having a rule is a rule. Having no rules is a rule. It's like, the big thing is like, I have a home, you have a home. Like just presume Chinese culture, or, you know, most Asian culture, right? No, most Asian culture. If I was to rock up at your house, I use this example to my guys a lot. Yeah. There would be an expectation that I take my shoes off. Yep. And I walk in the door. Yep. And there would be an expectation that I sit where you tell me to sit. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Because it's your home. Yep. Right? And then I wouldn't just go to the fridge and take whatever I want out of it. That would be really disrespectful. Right? So for me, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, that you come into my home, I've spent more time here than my own home over the years, and you respect what we've built. Yep. And I say in particular, like, remember, for me, Bankstown was very much a working class community, right? And one of the things working in health management in the eastern suburbs was that I used to see a lot of young people tell me that, like, you know, like from Bankstown or from less affluent areas come through, and they used to come and, like, be dressed in whatever they wanted for an interview. Yep. Job paid $25 an hour at the time. That was good money, right? Like, it was very good money, right? And just, like, ask when they were going to get a holiday. They wouldn't be on time. Didn't bring a pen to fill out the forms they need to fill out, even though they were told to. Yeah. And then they would say, oh, I didn't get this job because of my name. I didn't get this job. Like, they call back and say, why didn't I get the job? Is it because I'm from Bankstown?
You come in with this chip on your shoulder.
Yeah. Yep. And then we used to have people come in, and they were terrible. Like, we used to have people who used to rock up with, like, I always joke about it, like a briefcase, and they would have had, like, they'd be lucky to have an apple in there, you know, like a pen and an apple. And they looked more official than the people interviewing them. Yep. Right? And they'd rock up, they'd do their thing, they'd do their song and dance, we'd give them the job, and the next day they'd sick leave as soon as they were entitled to it. You know, they weren't sick. They'd holidays, whatever, like, they just, like, abuse the system anyway. But the difference is that they went in there and did the right stuff. They were on time. They looked the part. They said what they needed to say. They did what was right, you know, like, for an opportunity. And I believe opportunity comes in life through respecting people and the opportunities they give you and their environment, and being good in their environment. When it's your environment, you can set the rules in that environment, you know, and that's kind of like the way I see it in my academy. I say to people, hey, you know, like no shoes on the mat is the one rule that exists everywhere.
Yeah. It's
right? That's
uniform.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. I get that. Right. And then I say, well, you know, and then people say, oh, I'm not going to bow. I say, well, that's fine. You know, like that's you. Like there's rules about why we do that. And I said, but you can't.
Does that really come up that people?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's huge. It's huge in jiu-jitsu today. Right.
What, people don't want to bow?
They don't want to bow.
Interesting.
You know, like, and there's different, don't get me wrong, there's religious reasons for that, and I acknowledge that for some people, right?
Yeah.
But then you also have like people who, you know, oh, look, I just do no gi. Do I need a bow? Like, and I just go, all right, well, cool. You know, that's you. Like, you know, and we try to, again, rules are on the wall. That's fine. You know what I expect of you. But I say like, but then you go to Japan and you want to do judo there. Good luck, man.
Yeah, it's a lot more
Explain it to them. They don't speak English either, man.
Yeah.
Google Translate's not going to work so well.
There's that cultural element, right? Like what's normal in society is dependent on the culture that you're operating in, right? And I think, you know, when it comes to businesses, every business operator has an opportunity to set their own culture and what is expected and what is the way that we do things, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm hearing you talk about this, here's an interesting one, right? So I used to run car dealerships, right? And part of running car dealerships is like you start to notice lots of little things, right? It might just be like, say, an empty Coke can that a customer's left on the yard somewhere, right? And I could sit there and watch, you know, 4 or 5 staff members just walk right past it. And I'd be like, is anyone going to pick up this fucking can? Right? Like, you know, like it sounds horrible, but I'm just thinking in my head, like, okay,
you need to hang out with my brother, by the way.
But we've just taken it for granted that there's this thing there, and like because we're there all the time, you gloss over it and you don't pick up on it. And so like I'd be out there like, you know, picking up this can, or I'd be out there cleaning a car, and like shout out to one of my mates, Kelvin, who you know has worked with me in multiple businesses, but he was always like, you know, Johnny, don't do this. It's embarrassing for us. And I'm like, well, if you guys would do it, then I wouldn't have to do it. And he's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll do it. And so he was really good, like in that sense that he would pick up on those things and be like, okay, guys, if you see Johnny doing something like that, like you should be embarrassed, right? He's meant to be the guy that's running the place, and here he is, you know, being your cleaner.
Yeah. And these are like, it's about culture. It's about the culture you're creating. Like it's like a funny thing. If I wear a dirty gi, you're gonna wear a dirty gi. Yeah. Right. You're gonna wear a dirty gi. It makes sense. If I don't clean up after myself, you're not gonna clean up after yourself. Right. Like you know, sometimes I have a foul mouth. Forgive me. You know, but like I don't. You know, I try to keep it clean, by the way. I'm doing a good job.
You've done a better job than me.
I've done a great job. Yeah, I know. I just registered that I probably haven't sworn much.
Yep.
But, you know, and sometimes things frustrate me on the mat. And I said to her, like, I'll make a point of something. And then I go, in my house, like I think about it, it's my household. Yep. If something annoys me, I'm going to say it annoys me. I'm not going to gloss over it. Yep. So I expect that in my home. Right? Yeah. So, and this is my home as well. So you respect me, I respect you. We respect the place. We play by the rules of the place. And the good thing about jiu-jitsu today, as I was saying earlier, is that there's a place for everyone. Yeah. There is well and truly a place for everybody. And that's one of the things I think people miss is like everybody wants to try to bring you over to an idea. But you don't need to buy into that idea. Like all things. It's not like, you know, you sit down with somebody and say, oh, well, like, what are your political views? Yeah. And then you're going to realize that you disagree with most people, right? Like I disagree with a lot of people, right? I don't share that online, but you know, like, there's a lot of things I disagree about. But that's the thing that's awesome about jiu-jitsu. It's like, you know, like we don't like, like to me, jiu-jitsu is the greatest video game ever made, right? In my mind, that's what it is, right? So with that idea in mind, if it's the greatest video game in mind, not all of us like the same video games. Yeah. Right. Some of us don't like the characters. Yeah, true. It's fine. Don't like the characters. Yeah. Right. But some of us do. Some of us like the format of the place. Some of us like, you know, some people just like the aesthetic. You know, they walk like into AOJ and be like, oh wow, it's white and it's art everywhere. Everyone's wearing white gis. Yeah. This is sick. It's uniform. Yeah. But that's our OCD okay. Approves. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah. Good stuff. Like good stuff. Like I think that's that. Like I say to everyone, like in my school, you know, sometimes people come and tell me stuff, and I'm like, man, it's okay. You can go somewhere else. Like like I'm a business person, yeah. But on the same token, I treat this like my home as well, you know, and like in my home, I wouldn't accept the guy that doesn't, you know, walks in with muddy shoes, makes a mess in my home, walks all over my white carpet in his muddy shoes and thinks it's okay.
Yeah.
Urinates all over the floor.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to accept that in my home. Why would I accept it in my business?
Yeah, of course not.
Right. So anyway, so that's my perspective is just be respectful of the place you go to, be respectful of the people. Like the funny part is the kids here, you know, they'll come in and like just wreck things. A kid the other day is like picking paint off the wall, and I was like, dude, like, why are you doing that? You know, he's like, and I was like, you go to school and draw all over the tables, and you know, I'm not going to say what I did when I was younger, but anyway, like we were all kids at some point, but nobody called me out on it, right? And I just say, hey, you're kicking the ball and it's hitting my window and my TV, and you know, I say, I'm going to go to your house and kick a ball around the house. How are your parents going to feel about this? And immediately the kids stop, because for the first time ever, they actually thought about it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if we're outside, kick the ball around as much as you want, man.
Yeah.
But don't do this on my house.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And I let him kick the ball around way too much. But you know, there's a limit. But you know, you get my idea.
Yeah,
you know, respect the place. And what I hope is that translates into their personal life.
Yeah.
It's not
Makes
just
them a better person
it's
as well.
not just about here. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
So okay, let's get into the bit of the story, because I think this is a funny story and it's a cool story as well about how this whole place started.
Yeah. So I'm a blue belt. I get my blue belt in Jiu Jitsu, and my brother, being a very interesting guy, he in Nitrix Fitness, owner of Nitrix Fitness, right? So he calls me up, and I live in the eastern suburbs at the time, and I don't live in Bankstown. I grew up here, but my work took me there, and I kind of stuck there. And my brother's like, he goes, hey, listen, I've opened up a gym in a warehouse in Bankstown, and we're going to start jiu-jitsu classes. And I'm like, oh, all right. I can't help you. I can't teach. I'm a blue belt, you know. Purple belt's a coaching belt, and I'm not a purple belt. So at the time, you know, and, you know, things have changed, a lot more black belts around and stuff, but there wasn't many back then. And then I'm like, that's cool. And then my brother, I said, I'll speak to my coach. And so I went and spoke to Bruno, and I was talking about how I learned how to communicate because of this. I actually got better at, you know, understanding how to speak to my coach, which I didn't do very well for the first instance, but then I learned how to communicate. But anyway, then my brother calls me a week later, because I'd made no progress. And I had a day job. I was training twice a day, you know, whatever it is. And my brother's like, you know, fuck you. I don't need you. I was like, oh.
Thanks, bro.
I was like, oh, man. What do you mean? And he's like, oh, I got a trainer. I didn't need you. You didn't do anything for me. I was like, oh, man, like, all right. And he goes, but I need a favor. And I'm like, righto, just give me shit, and then kind of, you know, and then ask something of me. So anyway, he says, I need you to come check out the class. It's with a brown belt. So, all right, cool. So I come out. It's I think it was a Tuesday or Thursday. I can't remember. But anyway, I get out to the gym. It's around November, December. And I get in, and the guy starts teaching, and he teaches us like double leg, pick the guy up, Tito Ortiz, you know, literally slam the guy. The only part he missed was the part where he dug the grave for him and threw him in there and like dragged him over to it. And I was like, he did not teach these 10 people here how to break fall. He didn't teach them any like basics, skill. He just taught them violence. It's pretty cool. I'm sure in his mind it was pretty cool. But I was like, this is terrible. Like, you know, I don't think this is safe. So I said to my brother, I said, like, man, no way that, like, you can't bring this guy back. Like, I haven't learnt that, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 2 years now. Like, and I traveled overseas, and I would do jiu-jitsu when I was traveling, you know, like, so I just think that's not good. And I ended up asking the guys, like, man, you know, what belt are you? And he's like, oh, I'm a blue belt. And I was like, I got told you're a brown belt. He's like, no, I'm a blue belt. And I was like, how heavy are you? He's like, 95. He wouldn't roll with me, but that's okay, right? And I was like, so you're my weight, and you're teaching this class, and you're a blue belt, and I'm not teaching the class. So that doesn't work for me, right? So I was like, I went back to my coach, and my coach, Bruno, is like, hey, look, we got the barbecue this weekend. There's a guy who just arrived from Brazil. His name is Mauricio. He's a good coach. He's teaching the kids class. He's hard to speak with. He's Marcus's cousin, and he's a good dude. And see how you go, like recruiting him. So I was all right at the barbecue. Walk over to this guy. He's got 3 words, like hi, bye, and thank you. Like 4 words. Thank you, sorry. So he's like, you know, and he hadn't done much no-gi jiu-jitsu. But anyway, he came out and, but the reason, sorry, I missed a key point in all of this. So I asked my brother why he wanted to do jiu-jitsu. And he said, well, I pull it on the sign. It's on the sign on the entry. Like he had one of them fold out like A-frame kind of, you know, and it said we're doing BJJ. And, you know, and that was also on the sign in the car park that pointed towards the gym. So there was like a sign that said, we do BJJ. So we have to do BJJ, guys, right? Yeah. Also said Pilates. I don't think the Pilates program kicked off. But, it was but, you know, like it was good. He maximized his sign, you know, in the end. So and look, you know, we got going and I was saying that we were doing, I think we were doing no-gi once a week, maybe twice. And it was so long ago in hindsight. And then one day, my coach Bruno said, hey, Sami, and I want to, like, it's a quick little shout out to Bruno. Bruno trusted me to run a school. Like, and I think sometimes a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, they forget the opportunities they've been given. I know that we create our opportunities in life as well, but on the same token, somebody's got to believe in you as well. Yeah. And I think that's important. So at the time when I sat down with him and said, I'm going to do this thing, he was like, hey, man, you know, you can do it. You're training twice a day. You're hurt. You're here. Yeah. You know, you're doing this thing. And you know, you're a confident guy and you're pretty, you know, you talk to guys and get them going. So that's pretty cool. So I think you can do this. And I was like, oh, thank you. You know, so I appreciate that opportunity you gave me, you know, because I don't think people appreciate people enough, particularly guys, you know, like in this day and age where people are going from gym to gym to gym, which is not wrong, by the way. I've always cross-trained. Yeah. I've never not cross-trained, you know. I just don't do it. I'm not overt about it, trying to make a point that I train everywhere. Yeah. I just do my thing, you know, and do it for myself, for development. So
I also, sorry, just to digress on that point, like I think that's also an important thing for any coach, really, because like I think at some, you always want to be upskilling, first of all. Yeah. Because as we've seen in modern jiu-jitsu, you know, the meta keeps changing. It's like, you know, when you play a video game and they release a new patch, it's the same thing. Right, when you go and watch the comps every year, like the skills are changing and the game is changing in terms of like, you know, what are we focusing on and what's become the thing that we now need to get good at defending. Yeah. And what opportunities do they create? And so it sort of does become a little bit of this cycle where, you know, what's in fashion sort of changes. But that's how you actually develop, is because you now get good at this new thing. And then off that new thing, you now develop an offensive system that comes off that. Certainly. Then other people have to upgrade their defense, and then off that defense, they create a new offensive system cycle that comes off that as well.
Yeah. Everything grows and develops. Yeah. And so it should. Yeah. You know, like and you know, I like, it's funny. I like playing a bit of 50-50. You know, like, and you know, like but I didn't take the Storley lightweight approach to it. I was like, man, Kavaka's tapping guys here. I can tap guys, right? Like,
just
you know,
jump straight into it.
Yeah, man. Like, you know, like, man, Hudson Mateus is armbarring from here. There's offense here. You just got to find it. Yeah. You know, and it's a matter of just playing through positions. Is it unconventional? And you know, it's funny because you know, people look at Gracie Humaita and say, oh man, it's a traditional school. But my coach plays 50-50 with me. Doesn't, you know, like, we don't get to train as much these days, but, you know, like, we're being 50-50. Hey, show me something. Let's play. Yeah. Everybody thinks that guys don't want to get better. Everybody wants to get better. Just because they don't agree with your approach, maybe their body doesn't agree with your approach. You know, their hips wrecked from all the sweeps that they did previously, that, you know, whatever, you know, or the back or whatever it is. So I think that's just got to be the mentality, is that, you know, like everyone says, when you get your black belt, like, everybody's got this idea, it doesn't matter about the belts. But when you get your black belt, it's just the beginning. It's just the lesson of how hard it is to continue to get better. Yeah. Like, that's the way I see it. It's like, you continue to get better. You have to keep getting better. I have to keep up with the blue belts, you know, like, not because I got to beat them. Doesn't matter about that. Yep. But I have to make sure that I kind of understand what they're doing so I can help better coach them. Yeah. That's the way I perceive it, is if I can't do what they're doing, or I can't understand what they're doing,
how do you coach them on it?
How do I coach them on it? Yeah. Right. And that's where I've entered the, like, kind of MMA realm recently with the guys coaching. And it's like, I've been very blessed. Like, I always talk about, I'm blessed with people that I get to be around. You know, I like Alex Pratt's, you know, Rob Whitaker and his team, you know, Alex's team in a sense, right? You know, and Jacob and Izzy and all the boys there. And I've been so lucky. Like I see what they do and I see how they communicate, and they're just great people too. And it takes away all that kind of the stigma around fighting that you've got to be a certain way, you know, like, so I've been really lucky, you know, like just to see how people operate, and that's been so cool for me. Like, you know, just and like, it's funny. I don't see these guys as stars, you know what I mean? UFC, he was here last week. I'm like, yeah, you know, that's cool. Yeah. Like, I've got to be around these guys, and they're just family people, good people. You know, that's what matters.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Like, so DC and Laura Senko obviously out here doing the commentary. I thought I'd share this story, right? So I was fortunate enough to, you know, get to catch up with them. And, you know, the thing I'd say about DC is, like, he's such a charismatic guy when you actually, like, get to listen to him talk. You know, he brings such good energy into the room. And, you know, we were having a bit of a play, and you know, it was just funny because, like, he's like, even though we were just mucking around, he's chipping me. He goes, you see, you didn't get the underhook. And he's like gloating in front of me. I'm like, DC, we're just fucking around, man. Like, and he's like, you know, giving me shit about it. I'm like, all right, you can tell, like, he's so passionate about coaching, right? And then, you know, when you talk to some of the other people, it's like, you know, but when DC's in the States, like, it's just like, he's just a normal guy, right? Just like you and I, right? But he comes to Australia. Like, we're in this bar, and, like, people that weren't with, like, our group, you know, we're just like, even the wait staff were, like, coming over and be like, oh, can I please grab a photo, you know? And it's the same thing for Laura, right? Like, for Laura, like, when she's back home, it's probably just like a normal for her, right?
It's normal business,
normal person, nothing really that different. But then, you know, you come to Australia and then suddenly it's like, oh, wow, it's Laura Senko, and wow, look at her, and, you know.
Yeah, and there's DC, and there's, oh, wow, that's the whole, you know, the circus has come, you know, we're excited about this, you know.
Right.
And I've been lucky. I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing. It helps me deal with my nerves about, like, you know, walking into a hospital and seeing people throw feces at a camera. You know, it's just, hey, that's normal. This is cool for me. Yeah. You know, I'm just gonna enjoy this experience. I'm gonna do it. Yeah. You know, like, and that's, I think that's a really important thing for people, is that, you know, like, we, you know, obviously have a lot of young people here. They want outcomes now, and I keep saying to them, is like, hey, you know, like, when you don't see the outcome, that's when you're probably getting the best you can be, right? Because you're building, you're not stagnating. Yeah, sitting there thinking about it. You know, that's true. Yeah,
yeah, and I also think, you know, especially when it comes, like, I think it makes people more accessible, right? You know, I think we often have this habit of, like, putting people on pedestals that, oh, it's so far away, when reality is it's a lot closer than we think. Yeah, you know, and like Rob's such a nice guy. He's a true gentleman when you talk to him, right? That, you know, when you get to spend some time with him, he's just, like, so down to earth. Yeah. And, you know, I think we build it up in our minds that it's something crazier or bigger than it is.
Yeah. Well, he's a dude. Like, my wife met Rob's wife and her family, and when we were at the opening of Smeaton Grange, and she had a ball. Yeah. Like, and she was talking, like, they are the same as you. It's a mother, it's a family, it's a father. Exactly. Rob, like, you know, Rob was like, I'll take a photo with your daughter. Like, and it's like, I didn't ask him to. Yeah. Like, and you know, she
doesn't want a photo with you, Rob. What are you doing?
Not like that. No, but, like, and it's just, it's great. You know what I mean? Like, Rob's, like, my sister and my brother-in-law saw Rob at the shops the other day, and they're like, oh yeah, Sammy's, and he's like, man, I bump into more people that know you than know me. Yeah. Like, you know, like, so yeah. Nah, it's good. Well, but yeah, no, great people. Like, and I think that's the most important thing about what we do, and the kind of the environment we're in, particularly in the fight game. Yep. You know, like, and that's pretty fun. But yeah, so
you need to circle back, to Mauricio.
Yeah, so Mauricio comes along, and about a year, like, so we're into this for about 3 to 6 months, and Bruno says to me, he goes, man, you got to put the gi on over there. Like, you got to put the gi on over there. And I was like, yeah, we'll put the gi on, right? So, we put the gi on, and all of a sudden the student base grows. At the time, Joel Costello as well. So Mauricio was coming out like 2 or 3 times a week. And then Joel came through, and Joel just decided to be one of the first professional athletes doing jiu-jitsu. Like, he was, and he runs Gracie Balmain. He's just a dude. If you ever met him, he's such a, like, awesome person, like, fun guy. And I was like, hey, Joel, do you want to do kids classes a couple of days a week here? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So we kicked it off, and I was still doing my office job. Like I wasn't, I was just doing long days and getting hated on by my girlfriend at the time for just doing lots of jiu-jitsu and kind of building a business without actually caring about the business. It wasn't my business, it was my brother's business. Right, we were training on like 20 mil mats. It was terrible. We were killing ourselves, yeah. And then literally, like, it was just funny. We put the gi on, and then we're up at around 40-something students. Like I said, my girlfriend at the time wasn't particularly happy with me, for good reason. In hindsight, I realised good reason. But I think something changed in me as well. I started coaching kids, and I was like, she didn't want to have kids.
Yep.
It's all about lifestyle, and I kind of went, well, you know what? I don't think this is working. Yeah. And it kind of coincided with me just deciding to open up a gym. Yep. And my brother called me up. He's like, hey, there's a spot, like, sorry, I went away from the microphone, but there's a spot just down the road that's opened up, and this guy's going to give us heaps cheap rent. I was like, all right, what's wrong with it? He's like, there's a brothel 2 stores down. and the cops just raided it, and there was just, they were growing marijuana there.
Okay.
So the cops ruined the place. Like we went in there, and we ended up spending the money that we spent a lot of money fixing the place to make it actually recognisable. Yeah. And then we did that, and we were there for a year. And then a year later, my brother called me up, and he's like, hey, the front of the shops opened up at my warehouse, and I think we should take the lease on. And I stupidly agreed. I was making more profit than currently in terms of dollars in this small place, and only operating in the evening. Yeah. And it was a cool gym too. It was a cool gym. So yeah, we did that.
10th Planet vibes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Like, I'm sure if you knocked out one of the ceiling panels, something interesting would fall out. But yeah, so that was it. And then time's passed, and we've like I said, we work in 5-year phases here. So it's kind of funny. We for the first 5 years of running the gym, it was more about just surviving and me competing, investing all my money back into the business and making sure it wasn't losing. And I just focused on my training. And then the next 5 years was kind of hard because my father was sick at the time, and I was kind of like trying to be the best version of me. And also, build this business and really make it a business, because we'd moved here and tripled our rent, and that was kind of hard, and I had a lot of life change at that time. And then, the last 5 years have been kind of like just crazy. Like I've got married, had a kid, moved to the mountains, and, we kind of said, well, that's part of the diversity and change. And, we started our MMA program, and now that's the new part of the business is, like doing that thing. BMA, which is, so Bankstown Martial Arts is our MMA team. It's a full-time wrestling, no-gi mat upstairs dedicated to that. A couple sessions of MMA in there as well, where we kind of mixing up the 3 gyms. Yep. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. So far it's been pretty good for us as well.
Yeah. Like one of the comments I was making to Sami before was like, it's interesting, that you guys run with the 3 brands. You got the Gracie brand, you got the Nitrix brand, and then you've got the combination, which is the BMA side of things. And then one of the things that you commented on was that the logo with the eagle is for BMA.
Yeah.
That's like what sort of keeps you together. So what's the significance of the eagle and your dad?
So my dad was pretty rogue his whole life. Like my old man, like I was saying earlier, that my dad, he was really big on, like, by the time you were 18, you could be whatever you want to be, and I think he gave me a lot of life lessons in that. So I followed the rules till I didn't have to follow the rules, and I did my own thing for some time. And the thing that links me and my brother is my dad. And my dad was obsessed with eagles. And I think a lot of people don't know, but eagles are, like, I think they're the only predator that hunt alone, like, or something crazy like that. Like, they are savages, Yeah. And my dad was obsessed with eagles. There's eagles all over my parents' home. Like, he's got a fountain at the front. God rest his soul. So he, so the thing is like, when we were kind of like, hey, we're going to work together to build an MMA team. It's not Gracie Jiu Jitsu. It's not, it's not Nitrix Fitness, not kickboxing, whatever. Yeah. I'm sure my brother would love it to be Nitrix. I haven't asked him. But that was his baby, right? Like, that's his baby. Yeah, exactly. So I don't blame him. I think that's important. I think it's good to be sentimental at times. Not all the time, by the way, but I think at times. So for me, I was like, hey, let's do this Bankstown Martial Arts thing. Let's it's a unity of us. It's that collaboration, and it's the thing that binds us, which is my father. And so we the logo's the eagle. I think a lot of people, probably think it's Khabib's logo, but it's not. And if you ever drive past my parents' home, there's a big eagle out the front. Fountain. My dad got it. what eccentric dude. Got a massive eagle,
Eagle
carved out
eagle
the front of their house.
fountain.
Typical Middle Eastern man.
Did he keep any eagles or anything? Or
No.
You
You can't keep eagles in Australia, can you? I don't know.
I don't know.
I've never, but
It's a bird.
I'm sure he could. It's not a typical bird, but yeah, no.
There'll be dudes with like their little pigeons that they are so proud of that are like flying around and homing pigeons that come back home, and your dad would be there with an eagle, just
with his eagle picking them off.
Son.
I'd appreciate that. But yeah, no. So and my dad was a pretty outspoken guy, but he was a very and when I say outspoken, like he was quite happy to argue. You like me and my brother, we're brothers.
Yeah.
Man, we fight, like we argue. And the thing was, he was quite happy to take his position and not like just concede because you're his brother. You know what I mean? Or I'm not, like, even us, we're not, we try to work together at times, and we have to argue, like, and we'll fight and get real mad, and then it's like, you know, we're not conceding, will stick to what we're doing, you know, but we still work towards those positive things for the business. And yeah, no, it's quite funny. So
well, out of curiosity, what was the reason for wanting to then, you know, do the mixed martial arts side of things?
Look, initially our plan was pretty simple.
Yeah.
You know, that we wanted to build a strong jiu-jitsu team,
Yep.
a strong kickboxing Muay Thai team. And I think once you've done that, the natural progression is you go into MMA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, I think that, and that was kind of, like, I was competing a lot in jiu-jitsu. My brother was building his team. And I kind of, like, after the first lockdown, like I said, I had to think about the business a little bit more. And guys were asking, like, hey, man, when are we going to do this? And my competition focus changed. Like, for me, I'm 37 now.
Yep.
You know, I'm like, what am I going to go do? Go win a Masters World Championship? Nothing wrong with that. Good on you. Go get it. Right. But I kind of, like, I didn't ever really aspire to be a Master World Champion. So I'm like, you know what? Why not?
Yep.
And the funny thing, like I said, I had access to Alex and Rob and the guys. And Alex would always, like, you know, I'd say, man, I got guys asking about MMA in the gym. He goes, Sammy, enjoy it. I said, man, what does that mean? You know, if you ever spoke to Alex, I think he talks a little bit. It's like, Sammy, enjoy it. Enjoy what? He goes, enjoy, make a team. Enjoy the team.
Yeah.
You know, enjoy the achievement these guys can achieve. You have the foundation, build them. And that was kind of like, he goes, like, you come out here, like, how many guys are here to train with us? You kept coming out here to train with us. And like, and I didn't train MMA for MMA. Like, my striking's not terrible. Like, it's not, you wouldn't believe that I actually am next door to a striking gym. It's not good.
Does your brother ever be like, hey, Sammy, come on.
No.
No. Stay away from each other.
I think we've kind of had a scuffle once he bit me. He bit me.
Was that because you're in a good position? Or?
Oh, I think he just bites. It's just like, maybe got the underhook on him.
Yes, you probably got the underhook.
Maybe you should learn a lesson there, Johnny.
Yeah, well, I don't think that would have gone down well if I bit DC.
You never know. You never know. But yeah, no. So that was that. It was kind of like, you know. Like, yeah, so that was it. Like, and I kind of said, look, you know what, I got to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I think that it's worthwhile doing it as well. Like, you know, in a sense, just building them. And it's funny because, like, I think MMA fighters are a little bit crazy. Like, I do think that's like not. And when I say a little bit crazy, I think that, like, you got to have a reason you want to get in that cage, man. Like, you know, I think jiu-jitsu, you can do it, and it kind of feel like rolling really hard in the gym. But and I'm not saying that, like, as a jiu-jitsu player, I'm not soft. I don't think I'm soft. Like, but I'm not. I'm not.
When you think about the age, when I say the age, the time that you were going through jiu-jitsu, when it was pretty much, you know, you get ground to a pulp day in, day out.
Yeah. I think you're not tough.
Yeah.
Like, it was just that the idea back then was that if you didn't put if you trained no gi, you did MMA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was what I was taught very early on. So then it was like, well, we're not doing no gi all the time. Like, you don't do no-gi a lot. I only did one no-gi class a week anyway at the time. And it was like, you're doing MMA, and jiu-jitsu guys were tough anyway. Yeah. Like, you're super tough. You're gonna get cross-faced to death in class. Like, if you didn't leave the class with your training partner's imprint on your face, you didn't train hard that day. Yeah. You know?
Getting the gi burn all over your face.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if your fingertips weren't bleeding, you didn't train hard enough. Yeah. Like, you know, so, but yeah, it's kind of funny how things have changed, and for us it's been good. Like I said, the MMA team's really kicked off, and we've had a little bit of fun with it as well. And I'm actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, you know, you're going to run a lot of beginners classes, and I'm like, I want everybody to do 6 months of kickboxing and 6 months of jiu-jitsu and 6 months of wrestling.
Yep.
Before they think about doing MMA, right?
Get
like
the experience with it. Yeah.
Like, see if you like it. Just see if you like it. Like, you know.
That is one of the things that Alta will sort of slide in to address, right? Like, it's
well, that's a chat we had earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, and you got to, that's the whole component of it for me, is that you've got to see if you like it. Like, and that's why I say, like, I think a lot of MMA fighters are a bit crazy because, you know, like, you get in there and like, it's, but it's funny because, and when Alex told me you got to enjoy it, I didn't think about like what it meant. But for me, it was like, the guys are going to fight anyway.
Yeah.
They might as well fight for you.
Yeah.
At least you care.
Yeah, that's right.
At least, like, well, seeing as your earlier story about my brother, he cares. That's a good thing as a coach.
Yeah.
If the coach cares, that's a good positive.
Yeah, he really cares.
You don't want him to care too
Very
much.
Passionate.
Not too
Very
much.
Passionate.
You know, there's a limit. There's a limit of caring, right? You don't want to go too far.
Yeah.
But that's the idea. You've got to care.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then that's a real positive thing. You know, so that's my perspective on it. And that's it. So when I coach the guys, like, they always say to me, "Why are you so stressed out?" I'm like, "I'm so stressed."
There's nothing more stressful than being in the corner of fighters on fight night. You know, like, people might say, "Oh, it's stressful being in the cage." No, actually, well, okay, I can only speak from my own perspective. When I'm in there is no greater freedom in the world. Right? Like, that's how I'm thinking as a fighter.
Ultimate expression.
Right? Ultimate expression, right? But in the corner, like, when you're like seeing things happen and you're yelling out, "Do this, do that," and if you don't have that connection and they're not listening because you can see, you know, like, especially in first timers, the shark eyes come in and they've just gone fixated and they can't hear anything.
Oh, they're not picking up any reads.
They're not
picking up anything.
They've just gone into autopilot and survival mode, and it's like, it's cool, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you get very
nervous.
So
you know how you fix it, Bart? Throw 15 head kicks. Just tell him to throw no.
Head kick.
No. Like, it's funny because I was actually watching one of the guys' fights, and I'm like, man, who opens up with a massive head kick? like how nervous were you that you thought, you know what, I need to be out of here so fast, I'm going to kick the guy in the face off the bat.
Just start with that.
Yeah,
Flying
legit.
knee.
Yeah. Just crazy, but anyway, So yeah, fun experience, and yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've got people rolling in for their
Kids
afternoon classes.
coming,
So so if people want to find you guys, what's the best way to find you guys?
Well, Instagram at Bankstown Martial Arts, or Gracie Humaita Bankstown, or Nitrix Fitness. Check out our handles, but yeah, we'll share some information. But thanks for your time as well.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you having
guys.
me.
Enjoy it.